Welcome to MalcolmPresents.com and my show, Conversations with Deborah, a bi-coastal dialogue. Deborah is in beautiful Greenville, South Carolina, and I'm in Sherman Oaks, California.
You come from my home state. I'm a native Californian who is, as everyone probably knows, I'm an ex-news reporter. So that's the reason I enjoy doing the podcast. But I was a native Californian until about 5.5 years ago, when I did some economic studies and realized I can't afford California anymore. So I moved here to South Carolina, and it's been very, very interesting, very, very positive. Interesting.
I found out why you moved to South Carolina, because it's the same initials. And someone asked you where you come from. You come from SC. It could be Southern California or South Carolina.
You know what's so funny? I worked my way through college. I went through community college, as did you. And I worked my way through the University of Southern California, thank heavens. And I got a work study grant, and I got loans and all of that. Well, the initials USC, of course, people said, well, where'd you go to school? I said, well, I went to USC. Really? They all thought it was University of South Carolina. And of course, I'm going, you went to USC too? I mean, like they said, you're not from around here, are you?
Just a minor correction. I went to CCNY, which is a 4-year college.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, but what I want to do is, when I went to college.
Before we go any further, I need to introduce. This is Max. Max, would you say, come here?
Max has been on camera before, if I don't.
Yes, he certainly has. He's the littlest of the bunch, and he is quite quite mischievous. He is very much a Midsummer Night's Dream little elf, I must say. So at any rate,
I can't say, is he totally black?
Oh yes. I must admit, I do love black cats because they are so not wanted by so many people. But we have 2 black cats, and he's the youngest of the black cats. So at any rate,
not being superstitious, but I find black cats lucky.
They are.
And when they cross my path, I said that the luck's going to befall me.
They are. In fact, this youngster came here about 1.5 years with a kid that was carrying him in a cat cage, and he says, my mom won't let me keep the cat anymore. Oh, I noticed that you had cats on the windowsill. Is there a chance you could take mine? And I looked at this cat and I went, oh my gosh, we already have 5 cats. And I looked at this face and went, I think we can have another cat. So
well, 5 is no good, because now you have half a dozen.
I do have half a dozen. But Gracie, Miss Gracie is over here. She's on my husband's office chair, which is her favorite place to be. But at any rate, sorry for interrupting.
Oh, that's okay.
What would you like to do today?
No, I just want to continue what I was talking about City College when I went to.
Very good.
At City College, I think my whole tuition was about $20. And I had to buy my books and everything, and I lived at home. It took me about 2 hours to commute. But because there was no tuition, I mean, it's a city college, I had a free education.
Yep.
And what I wanted to do, actually, I was trying to contact some people. In fact, I contacted them at City College to maybe do a show talking about the benefits of a public education, of a free college education, and how, since I couldn't afford it, my father had just passed away when I graduated high school, and we had no money. I had to work my mother paid the rent, and with the food, she was fine. She went back to work. But I had to buy all my own things.
Yep.
Whether it be transportation, clothes, going out. But anyway, if it wasn't for the City College, I would have never been able to afford it. And I know there are millions of stories.
Same with mine. I mean, I graduated from high school. I was very disappointed, and it let my grades kind of slip. And I disappeared up to Mammoth Lakes, California, where I became a ski bum for about a year. And how did I make my living?
You don't have to tell us that.
I was paid $1.43 an hour to go ahead and bust people's garbage out of the cafeteria. And it was quite an awakening for me. I was able to be there only for about 6 months. Great skiing, I must say. But after about 6 months, I realized I really needed to get an education. And I was very grateful to be able to go to a community college. And you're right. The tuition was minor at that point, very little. enough at least I could afford. But of course, I had to work as a waitress, and I did work study. When I finally got my loan, I ended up being a costume designer, not a designer because I was kind of an underling. But I did do all the costume sewing for the theater, which was great, which was wonderful, and I was very grateful. Took me 3 years to get through a community college because I just wasn't focusing on things, and suddenly I realized I really needed an education, and I do think that we need to make sure that our next generation is educated and can think on their feet, not just as a woke generation, but as a thinking generation. That's going to be the backbone of our democracy. And it is concerning when we are teaching many of our children, even in elementary school, to hate each other's race because of our color. And that really concerns me. This critical race theory situation truly does concern me. I understand that people need to be given opportunities, absolutely. But to hate one race because of their color of their skin, to hate
Well,
another race.
I don't want to get into that because you know, to me, there's no, excuse the expression, there's no black and white. There's so many shades of gray in between.
Absolutely.
And when you talk about race, you have to mention it because it is
Of
prevalent in
course.
society, and you can't just turn your back and say, you know, it's great to have like the who is it, Stevie Wonder,
hmm
Harmony, Black and White. The what's the name of that song?
Yep. I know the one you're talking
The
about.
piano,
Yep.
Ebony and Ivory,
Every and I mean, yeah,
which is about what we're doing.
Yep.
But again, that's a whole complicated topic. But what I wanted to say is that with the education, which I think there are like probably right now millions of people with the city university. It's now called CUNY. It's City College, Queens College, Hunter College. I think it's Bronx. I'm not sure which one is in the Bronx, but all of them, you know, combining together, you know, have raised have educated a group of people from, I think it was the 1940s, 1950s, starting back then, who became college graduates, you know, PhDs, doctors, lawyers, you know, everything because of education. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to do another show talking about I contacted the people over at City College, CCNY, to see if we could get people on the show who were alumni who, because of the free college, graduated but otherwise couldn't afford the education.
Well, I think that's key,
So
because
if
I
anyone's
know for me, that was key for me, and having the ability to get loans, student loans at a good interest rate. I was very, very, very grateful. But once again, times have changed. We grew up in great periods of time, Malcolm. We truly did. But we do need to get people educated and not indoctrinated. And I do think it's important. I know you don't want to talk about critical race theory, but it does concern me. I just don't think. I mean, as Malcolm, you know, Martin Luther King said, you know, it's your character and not the color of your skin.
all right,
And
but
we can't have reverse racism at this point right now. We're a great country.
But I don't think, I don't know. I mean, racism has been with us as long as there are people. That, by the way, that's another one of my topics. What I want to talk to again, mankind. What is our place on Earth? And I had let's drop race for you know, or you know, the critical race theories for another show, because that would take up at least a half hour.
Too much time.
Right. But I wanted to talk about, I had a show, I have a show right now, I'm only doing the audio, The Many Shades of Green.
Yes.
Which is about ecology and the earth. And I have a co-host, Maxine Rubin. And we had a guest on, his name was Nevin Harper, who lives out in Vancouver Island. And,
great area.
Oh yeah, well, he grew up, which was amazing. He grew up in the north end of Canada.
Yep.
And he said it was like where Canada met Alaska, and he said there were times it was like 44 degrees, where the Fahrenheit meant the centigrade.
Gonna say 44 degrees below zero,
Below
probably.
zero, right, excuse me, below zero. And it was,
Below zero.
it was amazing. But anyway, he has he does therapy. He's a PhD. I forget all the things, and a personal therapist. And he uses nature as a tool. Instead of doing the therapy, on a couch or in an office, he takes the people for a walk, either in the forest or the city or the beach.
That used to be done by mom and dad.
Yeah, well, because we were talking about how when you were talking initially before we started the show about the thing about computers and iPads and our phones, kids spend too much time, and we spend too much time, on electrical equipment or on internet.
Well, I mean, the reality, it's funny because here I'm learning gardening in South Carolina. It's totally different than in Southern California. Southern California, you always had the concern about the water, and you wanted to be very conscious of that because you certainly didn't want to waste water. Here we get thunderstorms. For example, we had a thunderstorm last night about 11 o'clock, and all of my weather apps said, oh, it's clear, you're not going to get any rain. Really? Well, the thunderstorm developed in about 10 minutes, and it was about a mile wide, about 2 miles long, and it was centralized right over our area, Sans Souci. And our little neighborhood, we got almost 3/4 of an inch in less than, I would say, maybe 20 minutes or so. So we woke up this morning and the plants are just in celebration. It's remarkable what natural water can do with plants. And here in South Carolina, the peace and comfort, we're in an area where we're surrounded by 100-foot oaks and just beautiful green. It's just amazing. And I have to agree, talk about therapy. You just simply need to walk out and touch the roses and make sure that your crepe myrtle is free from the bugs and what have you. And we do that every morning. We spend 1 hour to 2 hours out in nature, taking care of our area. We got rid of the lawn. We don't have any lawn. So all of it is all natural fauna. And it's very, very relaxing. It brings you back to deep appreciation of being able just to simply breathe in and breathe out, and to enjoy your life as it is, which we're doing. It's quite an epiphany for me because as a former news reporter, I was constantly on the run. I mean, I never got a decent meal, breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And now slowing down a bit and enjoying life is quite delightful. And it's like you said, you're coming to quote unquote the end of your life. I don't think so. I think these days, if we are able to really manage the stress, we eat correctly, not the processed foods and what have you. And here I am sounding like a hippy dippy and here in California. But if we take care of ourselves, it's just remarkable how the human body can respond. And just taking that walk out in nature, breathing the fresh air. I know it's added years to my life. It truly is. And my feelings about the world and about my situation, as crazy as it has been in the last 4 or 5 years, especially with all the political stuff going on. But you take a breath outside and you realize, wait a minute, this is life. This is my world. That's what's most important. Don't you agree?
I agree. Well, the thing also, which is strange, well, number one, going outside, well, like after the rain, whether you're in the city or whether you're in the country, the smell of the the grass, the fresh, or also like newly cut grass. But after the rain, there's sort of a freshness. To me, also, which you should know, out at the beach. When you're on the beach and you hear the waves and you smell the ocean, the salt air. But it also, well, part of the therapy, all of a sudden you start feeling again.
Yes.
Most of the time, most of our life, people are blocking off feelings. because some feelings, of course, are too hard. The death in the family or
Yeah.
illness. It's
Yeah.
hard to feel, even though
Yeah.
getting out the feeling might be good versus bottling it up. But
Mhm.
we're taught to hide the feeling. We're
Mhm.
taught to hide love or affection because someone might go away. We're
Mhm.
afraid. When
Yep.
you meet someone, you're not delighted, even though the relationship might, last a week or two.
Sure.
But you have to sort of like sparkle.
Mhm.
You know,
Well, it's been interesting. It's been interesting now that with the COVID virus situation calming down, my husband and I decided to go out and have dinner. And instead of being at a table, I said, we need to go to the bar. Let's go to the bar. All right. And we were able to meet a half a dozen different people and get a chance to talk with people, not just go on Zoom, no offense, but be able to actually talk with people. And it's just delightful. There is just a breath of relief coming over at least the people we talk to, a breath of relief. Now, the groups that we talk to, the first group, ardent Trump supporters. The second group, ardent Biden supporters. But once again, both sides, even though they talked about politics, were all saying, thank heavens, we can get back out again. We can see one another. We can talk to complete perfect strangers. And there's that catharsis that is starting to come back over the country. And I hope it stays that way, that we can get rid of the hatred and the blindness and just be enjoying one another for what we did. And like I said, we were only there for a couple of hours and had a chance to meet some wonderful people, exchanged emails, and we promised to get back together again.
well,
And
yeah,
it was funny. It was interesting.
for whatever reason, I've always been, well, I like talking, as you can tell,
Of course, me too.
but I've always spoken to strangers. I mean, again, even living in Manhattan,
Mhm.
I'd be on the elevator with someone. I would say, "Good morning. How are you today?"
Mhm.
And start a conversation. Are you going to work? You going to school? What do you do? It's my natural instinct. And I'm not a reporter, but as an interviewer,
Well, did people look at you strangely, or were they okay with you saying something like that?
initially they
Said
could
no.
look at me strangely.
There you go. There you
But
go.
I again, I lived across the street, Central Park in Manhattan, and part of the entrance of the park was about 20 yards from my door. So
Mm-hmm.
I'd be walking in the parking lot in the morning when I did my running. I always said good morning to people.
Mm-hmm.
And initially, when they first saw me, they looked at me like I'm crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But after they saw me 4 or 5 times, they'd smile and say good morning.
There you go.
So it's enough to, you have to break the initial inertia.
Well, you know what they do here in South Carolina? If, for example, we're out gardening first thing in the morning, and if a car will go up or down our street, you are obligated, and I say this in a nice way, but obligated to give a wave. And it's very interesting. I would say 99% of all of those folks that are here are all waving back. We don't know who these people are.
Yeah.
Half the time we can't even see inside their cars, but you can see their hands through the through the windshields. And there's a, hey, how
Yeah,
you doing?
it's
There's something
acknowledgement.
great. Yeah, there's something great about it.
Well, that's one of the things that isolate the poor, the homeless. They
Yeah,
say when people pass them, they don't acknowledge them and they don't say hello.
yeah.
And they feel like they're isolated. I mean, I know my problem is, and it's happened to me before because I say hello to people, but
Mhm.
all of a sudden I'll get somebody that's sort of like mentally unbalanced that starts following me and starts getting angry,
Yeah,
and they're in their own world.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I still say hello, take the risk, so at least I could please somebody that might be, not grateful, but happy that I said hello and acknowledged them. But what I
Yeah.
wanted to point out is in
Mhm.
nature, and I'm not sure whether that's good or bad, but nature, we realize how insignificant man is.
Absolutely.
Because you look, especially to me, when I love the ocean,
Mhm.
and I grew up in Coney Island, a
Yeah.
block away from the beach, and I had a summer house in Fire Island.
Nice.
And I used to like going there in the morning,
Yep.
when the beach is quiet or there's no people there. And when the sand was firm, it was like low tide and it
Mhm.
was firm sand. and I'd either walk or jog
Mm-hmm.
for about 3-4 miles one way.
Mm-hmm.
And you see
And did you see anybody? Were you there all alone?
I was there mainly alone, and I saw
Right.
other runners go by and we wave at each other. But
Yeah.
the feeling was that this ocean was breaking for millions of years before man,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll exist millions of years after man, hopefully.
Yes.
And what part do we play in this?
Mm-hmm.
Well, are we that important? And the truth is, no. What gives you the feeling that your own problems are very insignificant? When you think of something, it becomes, oh, tantamount. This is so important. It's going to affect the world. It's not going to affect the world.
No.
The world is going to go on.
No. And
with
finding
you, without you.
simple joys in very simple things. And I think that's what's the one part, and you've accused me of being overly optimistic, and that's fine. I probably am.
But that's good.
But I found that the whole situation with COVID, once my husband and I got used to the fact that we were going to be closed in and we really couldn't go out, and there was just insanity at the local supermarket, and people would not look at each other, and they were masked up and scared and all of that. But once we got okay with that, it was very interesting to be able to slow down and to really truly enjoy your home life. We began to realize how much we enjoyed the little teeny tiny rooms that we have. We have a very tiny house, but the small house that we have, we filled it with things that were of value.
I forgot to knock my phone off.
Oh, oh, I like it. Who's calling you?
That's it.
Very nice.
You like the ring?
I like it.
That's a friend, Jeff. I'll have to call him back.
Oh, nice.
You like that? I like that ring. No.
Who's the music? What's the music?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
but getting back to COVID, I mean, at least, I mean, did you find that as well, that you were able to enjoy some of the you were forced to enjoy some of the very simple things in life, having your own dinner inside, not going out to dinner anymore?
Well, I've been going into dinner a lot. I mean, mainly it's not, number one, my wife's a great cook.
Mm-hmm.
And unless we're going out to a really fancy restaurant, because of the ambiance of it's always nice to get dressed up to go out.
Sure.
To wear a jacket.
Sure.
I'm in that old fashioned. I like getting dressed. I don't like just wearing my jeans and a t-shirt. Or now
me too.
Which in fact I was speaking to someone, which I might be doing another show on Jewish gangsters.
Oh, interesting.
I met I met this man. He is the great grandson of Meyer Lansky.
Oh, interesting.
And his name is Meyer Lansky Jr.
Interesting. Now that must have been a cross to bear.
Actually, no, because he moved out. The family moved out to Washington.
There you go.
State of Washington.
Okay.
So he met his grandfather when they went to Florida, and the story was his grandfather was a hotel owner. Until later years, he didn't realize who Meyer Lansky was. But what was I forgot the point of my story.
I'm just interested that you actually met the grandson of Meyer Lansky,
right,
who was notorious gangster.
Right. For some reason, I've always got into the mysticism of a group called Murder Incorporated. Not so much of the mafia itself, but Murder Incorporated, which was, I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they were a specific group of men that were hired for killing.
Mm-hmm.
When people wanted someone killed, you hired Murder Incorporated.
Mm-hmm.
And most of or majority of them, I think, were from like Bronzeville, New York.
There you go.
And they had these names like Shalom Bernstein, Bugsy Siegel,
mm-hmm.
Bugsy Goldman,
mm-hmm.
Abe Relis.
There you
go. They were all Jews.
Yep.
And no one ever connects, Jews with being gangsters. These were tough Jewish gangsters. And I guess I might find that fascinating for one reason. My dad grew up in Bronzeville.
Oh, really? There you go.
And I remember one time him meeting, I must have been like 9, 10 years old. And he met an old friend and they were talking about mutual acquaintances. They were either in jail or killed by the cops or killed by the gangsters.
Oh,
One of three things. Not many of them were alive.
Yep.
But and I also did a term paper at City College on Murder Incorporated. Why I don't
Is that right?
I was a penology major.
Oh, there you go. And then you probably got an A+ on it, didn't you?
Yeah, I was going to reform the world at one time.
There you go. There you go. And we are now. You know what's so great about your programs? I really do like, and I think anybody who's watching this program needs to watch more of your programs, Malcolm. I mean this very sincerely. What you're doing is that you're allowing normal, average, everyday people to really share their experiences, their expertise, and their heritage on this Zoom call. And I know that sounds cornball as all get out, but it's not. It's so interesting listening to ordinary people and what their impressions are of life, of politics, of America. It's fascinating. And like I say, it was interesting being at the end of the bar and listening to a group of people talking about Trump, talking about Biden. It was interesting because you talk about all these polls that come out about this and that, what have you. You know, you wonder if anybody honest to goodness actually talks to ordinary people like you're doing right now. You're talking to ordinary average people. They have great expertise in certain areas, but also have great opinions. And I just find it fascinating to listen some of the programs that you have. So kudos to you. You're doing
that's hopeful. That's what I'm trying to do. Develop which of this. Actually, this is a good thing because of the pandemic. This I started this like I think some of the shows like last April.
Yep.
And it's a new format. It's not the just audio. I mean, I like knowing.
No, I must admit, I like being able to see people. I like to be able to see your reactions. I think you'd like to see my reactions. Yeah. And I think it's important. And it was funny because one of the groups, the Biden supporters, they definitely said, and I'm going to send them the link, they wanted to be able to see the two of us talk about various issues. And it was interesting because I informed this particular individual who was a dentist out of North Carolina about some facts that he didn't know about. Once again, that's the news media not doing its job correctly. They should have known some very, very basic facts about some things that he was talking about. But once again, he was enlightened and said, oh, I didn't realize that. And he said, no, give me your podcast information. And so sure enough, I think we're going to get a couple more views. And I mean, that's the way it starts. What the heck? That's the way CNN started, with one or two people.
Well, I want to make the, I mean, I'm expanding the show. Soon I'm going to need help. And you're going to be one of the people that on the board either is doing your own broadcast. Instead of me apart, it'll be you and somebody else.
Oh, okay.
And you'll be doing your own Zoom, but we'll all be on malcolmpresents.com. That would be the platform. So it'll be like a network, TV. You'll be on the network and there'll be different shows. Because I don't have the time to do everything. And plus I don't have the expertise nor the knowledge. Nor the desire.
But you're pretty doggone knowledgeable, okay? You're pretty doggone knowledgeable. I mean, you're kind of like the Larry King here, okay?
But Larry, I mean, I like Larry King, but he wasn't pleasant to look at.
Unfortunately.
I mean, I've seen him and met him, and I go, that's Larry King. But when they have a close-up on TV without seeing how his body looked, I mean, I loved him as far as
it's terribly horrible.
Which reminds me of who I like is Mayim Blalik. You know who she is?
No, I don't know. Tell me again.
Mayim. Oh, I forget how named Balak.
Okay.
Mayim. But she is the one that's now hosting Jeopardy.
Oh, yeah.
She's a nuclear scientist. She's brilliant.
Okay.
And she, she was in the one with the geniuses. And she
Okay.
is, you know, she has a
Okay.
PhD and the whole thing. But she's ordinary looking. She's not
Yes.
good looking. She's not ugly.
Okay.
And this guy Murray Schwartz is on my Facebook, and I think he was one of the original producers of Jeopardy.
Oh, is that right?
And he likes her. I like her. I like her whole approach and her voice and her enthusiasm. I wouldn't mind her taking over. But he says they should get a hairstylist and a wardrobe mistress to help dress her.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that.
No,
Okay.
but she's very good. I'd like to see it's either her or Aaron Rodgers, but I doubt whether Aaron Rodgers would come. I don't know. You know who Aaron Rodgers is?
Yep. Yep.
I
Yep.
like to see him remain as quarterback.
I would too. I would too. So are
But
we
any-
up? We're at our 30 minutes already.
We're at 30 minutes, and we haven't talked about what I want to talk about.
What did you want to talk about?
I want to talk about how insignificant man is in this planet, that we have our, 100 years, or even if we live to be, but and we might ruin the planet, but the planet's going to exist.
Yeah.
And the decisions that we have to make sometimes are so trivial, because we say, oh, okay, so should I buy a new car or a used car, and you sort of like twist your mind about it and become so important in your life when it means nothing.
But in a sense, it means nothing. But I must say, for example, we try and recycle things. I know this sounds terribly Californian, but that's the way it goes. We try and recycle glass. We try and recycle paper. It's those insignificant things that you do that truly do add up. It was very funny. I had a conversation in Walmart, and the gentleman that was standing about 10 feet away from me, it's black, and the two of us looked up and down the aisle, and I'm looking for just plain old chicken, okay? And I'm looking up and down the aisle like this. So is he. I look over at him, and I said, "What the devil just happened?" So he looks at me. He looks at a white woman. I'm looking at a black guy. The black guy comes on over to me and says, "You know what it is?" He says, it's the gasoline situation, and the truckers can't get out to get anything refilled here in terms of chicken or hamburger or anything like that. And he said, and they're all trying to make us very fearful about things. And I said, we won't be fearful. We just got to stick together. And he looked at me and said, right on. You're right. Gave me a high five like this, and we walked off. It's those small incidents of coming together and realizing our humanness, our insignificance, but our significance, and doing those small acts of kindness and understanding.
That's something different, because I think the time when I felt I was giving the most and felt good about myself is when I was in a few years in the group therapy sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And when somebody is in need and you can help them,
mm-hmm.
and then they show their gratitude, it made me feel so full. So it's so good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I realized that, like you say, helping. We're talking about, my different shows. I want to do a show with Reverend Fletcher Harper, who I have on the show up close and personal. I don't know if you've listened to it yet.
I haven't had a chance to, but it sounds fabulous.
But he has a group called Green Faith.
Okay.
And they're talking about how they could save the planet with him and a group of other ministers from he's Episcopalian.
Okay.
And what I want to do a show is we do things for fellow men, or at least I would do fellow men, not to please God, to make things better for this world, for people.
But isn't man and woman all in the image of God? So
I'm not talking. I don't know if there is a God. I don't know if it's all nature, like you say. You see the trees and the plants and everything. That might be nature, which we're talking about. I'll go out. I don't know how it is in North Carolina, but in South Carolina rather. in Los Angeles, you can't see the stars, because there's so much different light. I remember going either to the desert and to Vegas, or going to Big Sur and going out in the night and say, oh my God, look at that. I never realized this. I mean, I realized, of course, but I didn't believe there's so many stars.
You must come here because you can see the stars here.
Now,
And
now,
I
now,
agree. You could
now,
not see them in Los Angeles or even Santa Barbara, where I came from.
right now, if you, but by then I go, my question is God the God of all that? Did he created everything? How far is it? And how far can we, there are stars that come to us that are dead now, because it's by the time that light travels to us, they're no longer there. Is he God of everything?
Well, maybe the entire universe is simply a speck of dust in a gigantic vacuum cleaner. Talk
Right.
about insignificant.
Right. And then you talk about, the earth. How
Yes.
long has man been on the earth?
Not that long.
No, not in comparison to how long the earth has been here.
Not that long.
But not if you believe that, God created the world in 7 days, and before he started creating the world, there was nothing. What did he do? Twiddle his thumbs?
Well, I do think that people have always needed to have an explanation as to why they're here and how they got here and why everything seems to work. So stories seem to be very settling, very, very settling. And
Well,
of course,
well, I think I mean I'm more in the believer that they don't necessarily have to know why, but they have to feel protected. It's almost like being a baby and having your parents there, and there's a protection. And like when you get hurt or you get scared, you run to your mommy and cry and hold her. To me, people use God for that a lot.
well, one thing that's very interesting that I've started to read the Bible again is that I find it very interesting that similar situations like we're all facing, whether it be death of a loved one, whether it simply be frustration, anger,
or mortality,
or mortality, that the stories of the Bible, the story of the Bible is such that it shows how people of a long time ago got by and got through it. And I find that very comforting. I find that very, very comforting.
But as usual, our time's ending. We said the long goodbye. But one story when you're talking about reading the Bible, you're probably familiar with W.C. Fields,
Of course.
the actor. I don't know. A lot of people aren't, of course.
Really? Oh my God.
We're at a certain age.
Of course.
But anyway, and he was an atheist. He didn't believe in God. And I think he was in a nursing home. And I forget who tells the story. I think it's George Burns. Tells a story. He goes to the nursing home and he walks in, and WC is reading the Bible. And Burns says, "Bill, what are you reading the Bible? You don't believe in God." He looks up and he says, "Well, if there's no God, it doesn't make a difference. If there is a God, it doesn't hurt." With those words of wisdom, I will see you next week.
Bravo.
See the shows and we'll talk about it.
That sounds great.
Okay. Send my love to Fish.
And my love to Anna.
Okay. Bye-bye.